Hi everyone, here we are back again, and this is a three-part series I'm doing this evening, and it's about a family in crisis, and we're going to hear some pretty incredible stories. But let's start with one. This is Alana, everyone.
Hello.
And we were just discussing your son's life, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
So let's go way back to when, because we're going to talk about how he's progressed in life, schizophrenia, how he's ended up in jail, all that sort of situation, what's happened to him in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's talk about when he was, like, let's go way back when he's 7.
Okay. So when he was 7, we lived in a housing complex. It was a cul-de-sac, and in the middle of the cul-de-sac was a children's play area where all the children used to congregate and play together as such. Chad was one of those children, so was one of my other sons. At the time, there was a pedophile living in that cul-de-sac, unbeknownst to us, who was married and had a child of his own. So seemingly would be a decent sort of person. And back then, you know, all those years ago, 30 years ago, pedophilia wasn't something that was, I suppose, was openly talked about or what have you. Anyway, he used to put on little afternoons, Friday afternoons for the kids, and they'd go over with his son as well and watch movies, or he'd put on discos or what have you. And
all the time you're thinking, what a great dad in our neighbourhood.
What a great parents, both of them, the mother and himself. And we were all working single parents who lived there, and he was just luckily one of the people who were married at the time. Anyway, as it turned out, he was a pedophile, and he molested my son, as well as my other son and another little girl in the complex. How that all came about that we found out was through my younger son at the time, who I noticed, I was training him out of nappies. Toilet training him, he was about 3.5. And he didn't go over there, obviously, very often, but on a couple of occasions they offered to babysit for me because I was working, which I never thought anything of at the time. But this particular day he came home and he had a red rash, and I said to him, "Oh, did you have an accident?" You know, and he said that this person had actually sucked on his genital area. So I went downstairs, and it was a townhouse I lived in, and asked my other son, you know, what do you do when you go over to this person's house? Because I think something's happened to your younger brother. Well, in saying that, then my older son then broke down and came out, started crying, and started to tell me that he'd actually been tied up by this fellow and sexually assaulted on one occasion. And that he'd actually been able to get himself untied and had fled home. And he'd been wetting the bed for a couple of months. And I thought it was just stress. I was a busy mum, and I felt very neglectful now looking back. However, that's how it all came out. So then we went through 5 years of 5 trials where he took the stand. Back then, in those days, they didn't have the use of the anatomy dolls that we do have now all over New South Wales. And the other family, where the other little girl, their parents and myself were integral in getting those dolls brought into Newcastle Courthouse. We petitioned the government and actually got a legislation for them to be brought in. So that was really hard.
So that makes it easier, I shouldn't say easier, but it makes it much better for the child to be able to explain what happened to them.
That's right, because during those 5 trials, he was unable. He kept, they have pet names for their genital area, and unfortunately, the fellow didn't take the stand at all. He denied, he had a right not to take the stand, and so we had 5 hung juries. So the jury couldn't decide because of the way that the other little girl had described her genital area. My other son, who was too young to be interviewed as such, and my older son, they did have pet names for their genital areas. So the jury just couldn't come to a conclusive or unanimous decision. So we had 5 young trials, and hence he walked free.
Oh, gosh.
It was a horrible time.
Oh, so, I mean, that affects a young child.
Very much so, psychologically and emotionally it affects a young child, because they don't think that they're believed. They don't think that... So then, I suppose it just set the course for his life, because he, didn't think that anything he would say that he would ever be believed or what have you. Yeah, so it was pretty awful.
And I think too, like, there's a lot of young mums out there that have been through this situation with their children. They don't know what to do. I mean, the thing is, go and do it.
Absolutely.
Report it.
Yeah.
Don't think that, he's going to get away with it, so we won't even worry about it, or it's all too hard, or whatever. Just, whatever you do, just go and report it to someone.
Exactly.
No
absolutely.
matter, if it's a social worker, lifeline, a friend, get someone to help you, to take you to a police station even. Because things are so different now.
Absolutely. Look, this is going back, this is going back the best part of 25 years ago, and as you know, like mental health and, all these things about the pedophiles and all this sort of stuff, it's more openly spoken about these days, and there's a lot more supports in place than what there were back at that time. So, and we believed him. I believed him. We believed him as a family. We knew we knew all of them were telling the truth. However, they just didn't have the supports or the link-ups. We didn't have the video link-up or anything like you've got now at the courthouses for young children. And he had to sit in the courtroom and actually face this guy, and so did the other little girl. Oh, it was terrible. It was just a terrible time. It was awful. Yeah.
So nothing got done about that. It was just let go, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then what happened to young Chad after that? Like, what did you notice with him?
Well, he just seemed to become... Well, because he'd come forward over this gentleman, all the other kids in the cul-de-sac turned against him, because then the parties all stopped. The good time, the fun all stopped. And
the grooming,
grooming, that's right, had stopped for all these kids, and they didn't know, and so they thought that he'd made it up and what have you. And so they sort of treated him pretty bad. I remember on one occasion they actually conned him into going down to the creek and stripped him naked and took his bush bike off him and left him down there naked.
Oh. And how old was he?
He would have been about 7.5, 8 at that time. So it was really hard for him. So he learnt not to trust people, and he became very inward, where he was a little bit, normal kid. From then on, he just was very quiet and withdrawn, and just sort of hung by himself and hung at home, and rather than going out and playing with his mates. Yeah.
So from there, so we're going a little bit further.
Yeah.
So did you see any difference in him, like with his development and all that sort of thing, as he got a little bit older?
Well, yeah. Well, look, once he reached puberty, there was some noticeable changes. He became very depressed, and I suppose he was very depressed, and we called on mental health professionals to check him out and what have you. They kept fobbing it off, telling me, look, this is just part of, him changing and puberty and all the rest of it, and he'll be fine, and, don't worry about it too much. But then he started to self-medicate with drugs, which, I know a lot of kids do these things. Unfortunately, Chad then developed schizophrenia. And they were unsure whether the schizophrenia was from the drugs, or whether he had a predisposition to that. Schizophrenia does run in my family. My brother had schizophrenia, as you know, and he committed suicide when he was 27. So it was something that we were very alerted to. Again, there wasn't a lot of help. They kept fobbing me off and telling me that I was an overzealous mum, and I was, that I was imagining things and all the rest of it. But then it got to a point where it was really heightened, and Chad was seeing himself, demons in the windows and the mirrors, and we had to have everything covered over in the house. And he thought that, there was people on the roof listening to us, and, all these sorts of things. So it really got to a very, what I would say, critical stage, and he was hospitalised.
How old was he at this stage?
He was 18, just before he was 17. And then he got into a fight where he actually hurt somebody quite badly, and he went to jail. So he was in jail for a little bit, about 18 months, and then he got out of jail, and then he had a fight with somebody else, and then he went into jail for 7 years, but he's just recently got out. So yeah, so he only did 4.5 years of that 7 years, and he's now out. And in between going to jail, sorry, I missed a bit there. He was in a car accident. He was in a car accident and got an acquired brain injury.
So when that accident happened and he had that brain injury, so he'd already been to jail first time.
That's right.
So the second time, he had an acquired brain injury.
No, sorry, he had the acquired brain injury before he went to jail both times. So he didn't go to jail until he was about 23. He had the accident when he was about 19. And he had the acquired brain injury, plus had the schizophrenia diagnosis by that time, and then went to jail the first time for 18 months, then got out. He was only out for 5 months and then went back in again. Yeah, so.
And how was life for him in jail?
Pretty miserable. It was pretty miserable. I know that he was nicknamed the Long Bay Shuffler because of the medication that he had him on. They had them on the injection, which has anybody who knows anybody who has those injections, they have some pretty heavy duty side effects for some people, and unfortunately he wasn't given the I suppose the anti side effect medication, so he shuffled quite badly.
So you're saying like the way he walks and he just shuffles?
He shuffles. He rocks backwards, side to side. He's very confused. He finds it very difficult to manage to get sentences together. So yeah, it's pretty horrible. So he's definitely a person who is bullied a lot and finds it very difficult to make friends. He hasn't had a girlfriend or anything like that because people aren't very sympathetic and don't see past that to the person inside. The side effects are minimal, or start to minimise towards the end of the injection period of the fortnight.
So it's every fortnight he has to have these injections?
These injections, yes.
Or he had them in prison when he's in...
Yeah, and he still has them now. Today. Yeah, still has them now. They're part of his
And that's probation. For the schizophrenia?
That's for the schizophrenia, yeah. So, yeah.
So when he had committed the crimes that got him to jail, that was before he had any signs of the schizophrenia?
No, he's always had the signs of schizophrenia, but it wasn't actually diagnosed until he was in prison. They didn't actually give a formal diagnosis until he was in prison.
Okay, and he'd had the car accident prior to going to prison.
That's correct.
So he's ended up with a brain injury on top of it. Hence why now he's pretty doped up, isn't he?
He's pretty doped up, yeah.
So going to prison must have been absolute hell for that young man.
It was hell for him. We tried every which way to get him into the prison hospital. And our pleas were just unheard. I can't tell you how many emails I wrote to corrective services, how many pleas I made to the court or to just anybody who would listen. And unfortunately they all went unheard, and he just did his time. This second time he was in protection.
Why is that?
Only because of the fact that they had recognised that he had an illness, and that he was too vulnerable to be in the mainstream. He hated me for doing that. He really went through a period where he would not talk to me because that was through my doing, not his own. And he felt that by doing that, I'd made his life even more miserable because nobody goes into protection. So,
Why is that? What's sex? I don't understand all this sort of thing.
It's sort of known as the boneyard, and it's only really for, as far as most people would know, that for, people who are pedophiles or who have raped people or what have you.
Oh, wow, so he's gone into that. And after being...
That's right.
Having a situation when he was 7, he's now been tossed into that.
That's right. And he didn't want...
Oh, no.
And he didn't want his very few mates that he did have thinking that he had done anything so awful or so dreadful to anybody in society. But I merely was pushed for that because I just didn't want him to get hurt further when, well, in hindsight now, I probably did make a wrong choice, but I don't know. It was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I can't really tell you.
You thought you were doing the
I
best
thought
for
I
your
was,
son.
yeah, I did think I was doing the best thing, yeah.
So then he served, 4 years?
So 4 years of the 7.5 years he's been given, and he's now out on parole and lives with me now. He's just moved down here with me. He's been here for about 6 weeks because he was let out into the community in Newcastle. And he had no support up there or anything. And he was basically just, he had conditions that he had to meet, like he had to meet parole conditions and mental health conditions and all the rest of it. But the first place where he went to live was inappropriate. The people there all had mental health issues. They all had drug problems. He was bashed twice. He was kicked out of there twice. He was on the street. He had nowhere to go. I'm trying to help him from here because I was in another situation, as you would know, with my sis here. I couldn't leave here. I didn't have any. I haven't lived in Newcastle for a long time.
And for our overseas visitors, we're talking like a 3.5 hour drive.
Yeah,
between
that's
both
right.
places. So
I did. Yeah, I mean, even though I have good friends up there, they have their own lives. I couldn't ask them to help with that situation. So the Department of Housing would help him and put him into motels short term, but then he had to pay out of his own pay. And he's only on he's not on a pension or anything because we're still trying to get the disability pension for him since November last year. So he's only on the unemployment benefit, which is he gets $511 a fortnight. So out of that, he's got to pay for his medications, he's got to pay his housing, he's got to get his food, he's got to get his transport, all the other things that go with that. So he was just pushed around to motel, and then they found him a place at Stockton, which charged him, it's a halfway house, they charged him $175 a week, which basically absorbed
about $250 or whatever.
That's right. And then on top of that, he had to pay his Opal card to get back across on the ferry each day to report to probation and parole.
You wouldn't have any money for food.
There was no money, so we were trying to send him food vouchers. We were giving him whatever money we could. All my savings are gone. I was a youth worker. I've left my job to care for my sister, so all my savings have been absorbed. It's just been a nightmare. And the home that he was in, he would ring me often, and I would have to stay on the phone with him all night because the people at this halfway house were all using drugs. And they were knocking on his door saying, "Come and have some drugs," and and he's like, he's a vulnerable person, So and he can't have anything all in his system because he gets drug tested, and not that he wants to have anything, but when you're in a situation like that, when you're vulnerable and you're not, you're not as I consider him emotionally the age of 12. You're not able to. It's hard for you to keep saying no if people are continually doing this to you. So, yeah, it was really difficult.
And then, so he's ended up coming here to live with you?
Well, he came down for 2 weeks. We had to jump hoops to get him to be able to come down here for 2 weeks with probation and parole and so forth and so on and all the things that he has to meet. He was coming here for 2 weeks. Well, I did not recognise him when he got off the train. He basically could have walked past me. He was so grossly underweight. He was that dehydrated that his skin was just wrinkly. I was pulled up his skin on his hand and there was just nothing. He had a hat on. He was dark under the eyes, and it was only by his walk that I recognised him on the other platform while he was walking across to me.
Wow.
And I brought him home here, and I didn't
tried not to be too, didn't want to sort of alarm him, and he just kept crying that night. I could hear him crying. I made him bed on the lounge in the lounge room because I'm only a little 2-bedroom house. And the next day, I got up to comfort him during the night, and I said, what's wrong? And he's not a person to complain. And the next morning, he said to me, and he was following me around, like every time I turned around, I nearly ran into him. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, I'm frightened that you're going to send me back.
Aww.
So, yeah, it was really hard. Anyway, so I got on the phone straight away and started to make arrangements for him to come back down here and stay with us. So, and anyway, they finally agreed, and here we are. So he's here now with us.
So now you've got a 2-bedroom house.
Yep.
You've got your sister Lainey, who we've just interviewed, who's
Yep.
dying.
Yep.
You've got Chad here. You're trying to work out how you're going to accommodate him.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Lainey's got to have her own room.
That's right, yeah.
You should really have your room, your own room.
Yeah.
So I've noticed there's this
Long.
kind of like, now what would you call it?
I don't
know
know
it's a
what you
caravan.
call it.
I know it's a caravan.
Yeah.
So you've had a go at gutting it.
Yes, I've gutted it.
Yeah, and I've noticed, like, I've gone in there today and I've had a look at your workmanship.
Oh, yes.
And I
so good.
figure, like, it's amazing what you do when you're desperate, isn't it?
Well, it's amazing what you do when you're desperate, when your hands
Arthritis,
don't work.
yeah, you've got arthritis.
Well. Yeah.
Because I know, like, and my kids will probably laugh at this, but I can remember a situation, I think I started telling you about it this afternoon, where our first house that we bought together, and we didn't have any money left after we paid for the mortgage, and I wanted to pretty it up a bit, and someone gave me a box of Ferrero Share chocolates.
Yeah.
And I used the gold sticky trim, and I put it along the tiles in the kitchen.
You've always been creative.
I was very creative.
You are. Even to this day.
And I thought, you know what? Out of a little bit of nothing, you can do so much.
That's exactly right. And I've been fortunate, when I say I've been fortunate, the neighbours have taught me how to use the jigsaw.
I wouldn't even know what that is.
Well, I didn't either, and good luck to Dr. Google. I love him, he's for everything. And I say Dr. Google because he teaches you how to doctor up things, big mistakes that you made. I've been fortunate that my husband and I are separated, but he's been wonderful. He's come over
and helped out when he can.
When he's been able to. It's like a bit of a the walls, as you saw, have been a bit of a jigsaw. I've made some mistakes in them.
But you can't tell.
No, you can't tell it at all. We still haven't got all the walls on, and you saw that it's still gutted. But hopefully, I'm hoping to make that up into a bedroom for him that will be okay with probation and parole. Because at the moment the situation is that he's in the lounge room, this room actually that we're in now, it doesn't really meet the guidelines because he's got to have his own room as such, and just because Lainey has so many personable needs that I need to attend to a lot, and it's just not it's not going to work long term for Chad to be in the house, if I have to shower, bath her or what have you and stuff like that. And he also, as a man, needs his own personal space. So picked that little caravan up for a couple of $100, and that's hopefully going to, once I try to get it fixed, it's got no windows or anything, as you saw, but
honestly, it is
will
like
work.
right now it's a tin can in the shape of a caravan.
I know. You've got to be careful what you cut out, because otherwise it'll all just fold in.
So, I'm saying to you, it is a family in crisis here. So if you're in the Wollongong area and you have anything that you think could help this beautiful family finish off the caravan to get Chad somewhere wonderful where he can sleep, just anything. Or even if you've got any old tools or anything like that, you can comment or get in contact with me on my website, www.onthecouchwithkelly.com, and there's a section there you can leave an email or something, so you can get to me that way and let me know. So right now it's about the caravan. And I know we've got 2 more shows to do, Alana,
Yeah.
tonight. So we're going to...
I'll take you out and have a look at it if you like.
Yeah.
No. There's not even a light to get out there. We're going to get that though. I'm determined. I'm a woman on a mission.
Yeah, bless you. Like, bless you. You know, that's what I can say. So, all right. So he's now going to have somewhere to live.
Yeah, he's going to have somewhere to live. All the bullying has stopped. I said to him that as a mother's promise, I know you make a lot of promises about your children, and especially when they're small, that no one will hurt them. But I won't let anybody hurt him any longer. That's for sure. I don't want him bullied or made fun of or, treated like he's not worthy and that's the thing, he thinks that he's just worthy of that sort of treatment because that's what he's been conditioned to. And he's, he did the wrong thing and he's gone to jail even though his ability to understand that what he did was wrong is hard. But he's a good person. He's worthy of being loved and treated right. And so, yeah, that's what I want to make sure happens for him. Give him the opportunity.
And then today, you had a visit
from mental health.
Yeah, and we found out an incredible thing.
There's,
what is it? Share it now.
Well, after 12 years, we have found out that there's one pill that he could take that will stop the shuffles and the rocking for him. One simple pill.
That you didn't even know existed.
That nobody has even said or mentioned to him in this whole time. And that very first time while you've been here today, they've said this is the pill that will help. So it's just amazing that that all of these things that have happened to him could have been avoided and didn't know about it.
Okay, I mean, I'm sure you'd have an incredible message for anyone out there today. Like, even the fact of a mum with a son or a daughter going to jail, facing jail, or in it, or right now they're in jail.
Yeah.
What would be a message of hope that you would give that person?
Well, when they tell you not to come and visit them, go and visit them. Don't let them tell you, because genuinely it's because, well, what my experience has been is that he was getting bullied, he had black eyes, or he had a split lip, or he had bruises, and he didn't want me to see them because he didn't want to upset me. Don't let them tell you that. Tell them, no, I will be coming to visit you. And as much as you shouldn't not trust the correctional services, my experience with them hasn't been great. So write those letters, write those emails, leave a paper trail and stay on it.
And here's to the caravan being...
And here's to the caravan.
being something, at least we can get a bed in, or we can make a bed with crates. That's the next thing, right?
Anybody who eats Ferrero Rocher, bring those gold wrappers along and I'll put them along
do the decorating, all right?
That's it, you can put them along
But we're going to have a go while I'm here anyway.
Yes.
So we'll have a go at it. So, I mean, each and every show that I do, I have amazing people that follow. And Mick Galvin, thank you so much. Tina Perry, thank you. Alana Jack, question mark. Denise Lloyd, thank you, Denise. Peter Marina, thank you. Sharon Shah. Jeffrey Dean Horton, thank you so much. Now, Jeffrey's been on, and Jeffrey, I'm hoping that you know about the 100 show that you're invited to on the 4th of December, Wednesday night, 4th of December, 7 o'clock at the Croatian Club at Wickham. But anyway, contact me. Redmond Gabriel, Chris Rourke, thank you, Chris. I'm looking forward to your show too. Remy Castle, Kim Price, Peter Egan Lee, Christine Amond, Sarah Van Dyke. Sarah, you've got your invitation, I hope. I mean, everyone is invited to the 100th show, but special invitations are to those participants that have been a guest on my show, simply because they're going to be in the audience with everybody else and you'll be able to ask your questions to me, because I will be the one being interviewed by my son and son-in-law, and the questions are coming from you guys in the audience. And there's lots and lots of entertainment on that night. So Margaret Moffat, thank you so much. And Sue Hall, thank you so much. And thank you, Sue, for looking after my mum. Okay, that's a joke between us. But, and thanks everyone for tuning in. We're just going to take a short break, and we're going to be on part 2 of this, where we're going to be talking about something completely different in your family. So it is certainly a family in crisis. So I look forward to seeing you in the next few minutes. Thank you very much, and know that no matter what in life, you're going to be okay. And thumbs up, Alana,
up.
you're going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.